This is the crater garden, and this is probably the most neglected spot on the croft. Really, most of the things on the croft have been built for a very specific purpose, is to be productive in some way intentionally or as part of the design. This kind of evolved, you know, this is as close as I've got to a folly project, if you will. When I first got a machine on site and started digging with it, this was where I came and started playing with it, because I figured it was a, you know, an out of the way corner of the croft, couldn't do too much harm. And whenever I had, you know, like another quarter of a day or whatever left, whenever I had a machine on site again, I'd come down here, expand it a little bit further. So currently it's a great big spiral in terms of berm. So it starts over here, and you can see it's not a very high berm, but you know, it's all topsoil. And then it goes around here in front of the camera. And here we go past these bushes. I'll come to this in a minute. That's from an earlier plan for the site. Now at this point the berm is quite high. At the back here we're probably 6-7 feet. You okay? Don't fall. Okay. And it's a bit thinner here, but it's still quite high as we pass. I mean, there's some perennial kale. Nice stone bench. And all the way around the perimeter. It's a bit narrow here, that's something I need to address at some point, but still quite high. And then comes around near the originating start, the point of the berm, and comes around and down. So the idea being that this is the entrance that you walk in, and around there's going to be plantings all along these berms, and then down in the pond was, you know, a nice place to sit and contemplate the universe, or just, you know, get out of the wind or whatever. Just going to be, you know, a nice place to come and sit. So the original plan with this was so that on really windy days we'd have these bushes here. These are Elaeagnus ebbingii. They're a very good wind hardy relative of the autumn olive, which, you know, does very well on this site. You know, we've had quite a few of them, and you know, I mean, they've done very, very well indeed. But still, I keep packing these in every year with more material on the base and packing it in, and still every winter the wind gets to them. So they're being moved because really over time, in summer here we're still a fairly exposed site. We haven't got a huge amount of tree cover yet. I think some of our willow whips are up to maybe 3-4 meters, and we've got some other trees that are a bit higher, some of the earlier pioneer in the shelter belts, but really there's still not a huge amount of shade. That's our biggest priority really. In summer here we've got, because we're so far north, we've got like 20-21 hours of intense sun. If it's, you know, really warm weather, that's desiccating, and if you're out in that all day, it's horrible. You just want to get out of it for a while. So that's the plan for this now. That's how it's changed. Now we're going for shade rather than trying to trap as much sun in here as possible on a windy day. Now we're trying to get out of the sun. So this pond needs some work. It's got a leak currently, so I need to bring the water level up by about 1 foot. It's not a huge job, I just need to get to it, and you know, over the winter I didn't want to be getting into there. It also needs a lot of the pondweed it's taking out of it, and we've got a major problem with an invasive plant that I've got plans for that. I'm not overly concerned about that in the longer term, but it is a pain. You know, it means that anytime all of the water systems have got this thing, you know, I'll do a video about that when I come time to address it. It's a major setback. It's a major problem, but it's one of those things we've kind of got a plan for already. So we'll come to that when the time comes. It is what it is currently. So what are we going to do to try and give shade here? Well, this is Bowles hybrid biomass willow. This stuff, even on a swale, you know, never mind. This is grown in the next to the septic ditch. So next to, this is not septic material I'm holding here. It's because it's been stored in the duck pond for a couple of days. But it's grown next to it, so it's never actually, you know, in the water itself, but it's still, its roots are down in it, absorbing all those nutrients, so it grows really aggressively. This we're going to plant all the way around the crest of the berm for the whole, well, not even 360, it goes beyond 360, so that's what, another 450, I don't know, a lot of degrees. So there's geese going over. Yeah. So it's going to go all the way around, and this stuff grows fast, especially when it's in a good berm that's above the waterlogging. So as it gets up and really, you know, really aggressively tall, we'll be able to start pulling it over. We'll have anchors down here that will have ropes that we can start guiding it across and trying to shape it. We'll be doing the same thing from the other side, and when they get big enough, we'll start twining them together. So we're going to make a great big willow dome over this entire crater garden. And the thing that I was like, yeah, maybe that'll be cool. But what sold me on this is, hang on, I still don't want duck pond. What got me on it is, follow me, coming into this, there'll be willow growing vertically here, willow going vertically here, up above head, making a big archway, and this then becomes a tunnel that you can't even see around to the pond. So you're walking through a big willow tunnel, you know, on a really hot day, you're starting to get nice and cool and shady, and as you go around and around the corner, we've got some nice steps in here. This was built so that I could still get a machine in and out if I wanted to. That's not going to be possible once I've got that enclosed anyway, not a problem. So we'll probably have a little bit of a ramp so we can still get wheelbarrows and wheelchairs and things in, but we'll put some stairs as well. It's really wide. So we'll have steps coming down, and we got little hung ponds around the place. These are the starting stages of an earlier project that I haven't finished yet. This pond, as I say, needs to come up deeper, and it will be tied into the other pond systems eventually anyway. But the first project, and really, even while I'm waiting to get into the pond in the spring to do all the rest of it, and you know, because it's going to take years for all this to grow into the point that it's actually going to look good, but time we've got, and this stuff grows fast. So we're going to stick it in this spring. It's what I actually originally had that material earmarked for. So yeah, we're going to go for it. We're going to plant something that is probably going to take the best part of 10 years to complete, but we're not going to do it, who is? And of course, it'll still give it, it'll look pretty, it'll look nice, still a folly. It's just something that's really good and fun, somewhere you can come down and sit somewhere cool. Well, especially with it, we've got a little bit of a wind pump or something, keeping the water moving. You'll have trickling water through the system. Really nice in the middle of summer to come in here, you know, in the cool shade and just be able to relax. But it'll also, of course, it won't just stop when it's closed in, it'll grow vertically. So at that point, it'll be a very aggressive scaffolding, because we'll have shaped it that way. You better walk up and over it carefully. And with loppers, you better harvest huge amounts of firewood. So it's still a productive system. It's still giving us a huge amount of productivity in terms of the systems that we need to run the house. But it also looks nice. So it really is as simple as, I'm going to push the cuttings in as far as I can into the berm. In fact, where are my gloves? I'll show one. But we're going to lose the light soon. So the sun's quite low. It's hitting behind clouds, so it's actually, you know, it looks a bit darker than it actually is. But we are going to lose the light within 30 minutes or so. So I want to get as much of this into the ground as I can. But, so there we go. It's a nice long wand. So these are going to be dug out. They're going to be moved. But let's see what sort of... So you saw how long that wand was, and that's all we've got above the ground. So there's probably half of that plus is now down in that berm, and it's a combination of I think the top of it is a bit of topsoil, below that is almost entirely subsoil, but below that, you know, going down 6 feet, is actually a layer of topsoil again. So by the time the roots get down and they hit that, they'll really be able to exploit it, and they'll be able to go for it. That is a lot of material in the ground. All of that will put out roots, and it'll do really well. We're going to continue that all the way around the whole way. We've got plenty of material here. I'll probably start them quite far apart until I know that I've got it all covered at least, and then I'll start filling in the gaps with what I got left. That's about as tall as I want it, really. Any more than that and I'll probably take the loppers to it, but it's a lot of material, so we should be good. So I'll probably stop filming for today. We'll come back and show it when it's finished and we've got a bit more light. Well, we planted until we ran out of daylight and a bit beyond, really, and then came down this morning, we finished a bit more, and finally it's all in. It's a huge amount of material, and it didn't look that much, so it makes the one day, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of cuttings are gone. So imagine this in 5-10 years time, just how much material this is going to be generating. So anyway, we've planted really heavily in the entrance way, so once you've got this enclosed in with a nice big archway, it's more easy, I think, for the brain to interpret, okay, I can see what this is going to be, so it'll look prettier sooner. So we've planted very heavily there, including a couple of very big chunks of wood that we actually just had to put in with the spade because it's just, you know, too big a chunk of wood. All of the stuff here is relatively long, but the short stuff behind this, see, all of these are basically about 2 foot long. Some of them go down 3 feet, some of them go down 1 feet, some of them a little bit less. So we've got as much as we can into the ground as a complete cutting, and then we've cut it off. So we have got a small amount above ground, so there's not too much for the wind to catch, but we've still got as much material as we can down in the ground, putting on roots sideways and getting really established. And you can see just how closely planted they are. I mean, there's, well, at least 1 a foot, usually 1 every 6 inches or so, all the way around. And this is a major earthwork. Now as we get around to the back there, it's closer to a foot, it's probably more like 10 inches between them. There's a few places we're a little bit thin on the ground just because it's so stony. What we'll do at a later stage, we'll come through with a bar and we'll hammer that into the ground and we'll put a stake in later. But you know, I'm not worrying about it today, it's just to get the bulk plantings in. So you can imagine this completely enclosed over and a nice archway all the way down. You can't see any of that at this point. You're just coming down here, still going around the corner, then starting to lose sight with the archway behind, starting to come into a completely different space, so that as you're down in the center here, once it's all completed, you can't see the entranceway. So you're completely enclosed in all this green. And as we come down here, as I said before, there'll be steps here. This will be another archway in time. It's not the most urgent one, so we'll, you know, back plant with some pretty significant stuff later. And then of course we're into the huge dome, completely enclosing it. Now I don't know how many years that's going to take. I don't even know if this is going to work, but we'll try. So, you know, who says that only the super rich in the Victorian era get to have follies? Difference is, this is like a biological folly. This actually produces firewood. It gives us a nice environment. The more beautiful a landscape is, the more that you're able to go out and interact with it and just relax and have a pleasant time rather than just seeing chores and work everywhere, the more likely you are to go out and interact with it. And this is, you know, exactly that sort of thing. And it's a pretty significant chunk of landscape. But in the grand scheme of things, compared to, you know, the site as a whole, it's a very small corner and it's got various options. So, of course, once this is completely enclosed, that's pretty much the ultimate heron defense. You know, we're not getting herons in here anymore. So we can have some really nice fish ponds develop in here with some nice koi or whatever, just something nice to come and sit with. We can have a raised pond so we can have the water interchanging between the two and have that little trickling of water. We can have a little hut down in here, so even when it's raining, we can come and sit down here and have a little brew and have a cup of coffee or whatever and just, you know, listen to the rain coming through the trees. It'll be a nice space. Sometime in the next couple of weeks, all these shrubs are going to be taken out because they're wanted elsewhere where they're going to have a slightly easier life. I could stake them and leave them here, but you know, enough's enough. This has become a different space at this point, so they're going to get moved. They've done quite well, all things considered. So, you know, they're going to get used. You know, they're a real asset, but they're, you know, the plan for this particular spot has changed. So sometime during the summer, I got to come through, dig out all this invasive pondweed, repair the leak, which will bring the level up by about a foot, and then it'll start becoming a fairly interesting space again. And of course, we don't need to wait for the willow to enclose the dome for it to start becoming a fairly sheltered space. Once the green is up, you know, and they've got maybe, I don't know, 7, 8, 10 feet, which is easily done inside 18 months. At that point, it'll start growing shoots out sideways. We'll weave those together from the very beginning, and already we got a space that, you know, anything below, you know, 10, 15 feet is very, very sheltered. So already we're in a space that becomes a sun trap for a while until it becomes more enclosed. It's going to be an interesting space to watch develop. Now, so we're clear, so I don't, you know, from the outset we know we're going to have losses. There are no vole guards on any of this. We're going to have some chewed, especially across the back there. The previous willow plantings were really hammered across on that side of the berm. So we just know that that particular spot, we get a lot of, you know, a lot of influx of rodents coming in, and they do a lot of damage to the willow. So we're expecting to have to overplant and replant repeatedly over there. But, you know, if the odd one survives, it's still worth doing, and the rest of it's still coming along. So it's going to be a long-term plan, but you got to plant it sometime. So it'll be interesting. So yeah, pleased with that for about an afternoon's work, maybe. Yeah, that's a major thing in the landscape.